This is The Road Show, and I'm your host, David Warren. Returning to the program is our friend Thomas Harrison, who says that life is too short to be discouraged. That's the subtitle of Thomas's latest book, Oxygen for the Soul, which is a collection of inspirational articles written to encourage both his readers and you, our listeners. At this time, let's welcome back Thomas Harrison, Ph.D. Dr. Harrison.
David, great to be with you and all of the Oasis Radio Network.
I emphasize your doctoral degree because you and I studied up until that point together at the
same room.
In the same room at the University of Oklahoma. We took journalism together, and that's how we met.
That's right.
We both have a love for the written word, and I know you do too, the spoken word.
Yes, indeed. And so who knew back then that we would be here today?
Well, you were a nice guy back then. I mean, you've always been a nice guy.
Oh, thank you, David.
I've grown since then, but you were nice even back then, Thomas. Do you remember what we learned? I mean, did you learn anything?
Of course I did.
Okay.
You know, there are people listening, and of course we want people to attend the University of Oklahoma and their journalism school. Yes, of course we learned something. You know, it was fascinating. We had several guest speakers that would come to our various classes, and those were such wonderful times of learning and immersion in knowing how the business of writing and the business of journalism and media works. Those were fascinating days.
Did you know that you would eventually be writing books? Was that a dream of yours?
Oh, no, never. I was hoping that one day I could read the books, let alone write them.
So why did you take a degree in journalism?
Well, media has always been a part of my life. I had started in television when I was 5 years old in front of the camera, so media was always part of my life and that thing. And I'll tell you an interesting story about this. In the 7th grade, there were some things happening in our community, and my parents put me into a private a parochial school for 7th grade until we were able to relocate to a different part of town. And one day, someone taps me on the shoulder, and I'm taken out of our classroom into another room down the hall, and the sign over the door says remedial reading. And I was like, you know, in 7th grade, you're just like, in my mind, 7th grade remedial reading meant awful, meant poor,
less than.
Needed to be corrected, that kind of thing. And so they gave us books to read. See Jane Run. The Dog is Black, that kind of thing. And I was so embarrassed. So went through that during the day, and I came home, and I was angry and frustrated, and I was in tears, and I poured out my frustration to my mother, and I said, you will not believe what happened today in 7th grade. So I told her, they put me in remedial reading, See Jane Run, this kind of thing, you know, and my mother just listened and waited, and I'm like needing affirmation, correction, encouragement, something from her. And so when I'm finished, she says, tomorrow, show them what it's all about. And I'm like, wow. So the next day they put the book in front of me. I said, See Jane Run, the dog is black, blah, 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 blah. That was my last day in remedial reading. So reading's always been a little bit of a challenge for me, but never in my wildest dream did I ever think about writing books.
Well, it's interesting that you use your talent to help others in the area of writing. Besides just writing books, you write for others. You have a company called Media Embassy, and I was reading about it. I knew somewhat about it, but I thought, ooh, that's a good service you provide. Tell us about something you do for pastors and
well,
I guess business owners?
Sure. You know, part of that is taking their message and turning that into their website. Part of that is taking their message and turning that into a book or a sermon series, that type of thing. Some ghostwriting. I also do publicity services for certain authors, and some of them you may have known from the past that I've done that. So we try to help business owners and pastors take their message just a little bit further to help send the gospel all around the world.
Well, what caught my eye was that you have a press release service.
Yes.
Now, there's that journalism
There we go.
coming in,
There
but
we go.
you know, it's hard to find a good writer.
Oh,
and
it is.
and for
It
churches that don't have a large staff or businesses that don't have a large staff, because we all have talents, but most people don't have a real high-end. Now, everybody can write. Well, I should say almost everybody can write, but that high-end needed of writing to go to a press release goes to media.
Right, and our news releases have been published by some of the largest newspapers and electronic media in the U.S., Wall Street Journal and USA Today and a variety of other services.
Well, you have an endorsement from a pastor, Nick Rogers, in Lubbock, Texas. What did you do for him?
Well, Pastor Rogers came and said, we've just had a tragedy happen in our place, and we need to get the word out that a pop-up tornado, pop-up gust of wind decimated a building on their campgrounds, underinsured, didn't have funds for that. So we created a news release that we were able to send to multiple services, and they've been able to raise funds for the completion of that project. So
wonderful.
We're pretty excited about that.
Well, if you want more information on the press release service or publishing, if you have a book inside you, that web address is mediaembassy.com. But we are here primarily today to talk about Thomas's new book, inspirational book called Oxygen for the Soul, subtitled Life is Too Short to Be Discouraged. I love that. Tell us why you wrote this book. It's a lot of work.
It is. David, this is my second book. The first book was Move Up, Don't Give Up. And you were very gracious to interview me then. Since 2013, I have sent inspirational messages on Sunday morning to my network, pastors and business people and evangelists, that type of thing. So every Sunday, almost every Sunday, I have been taking these messages and sending them out by text to my network. And so Move Up was the first collection of those texts. And then so after Move Up, I thought, there's still so many stories that need to be told. So I started working with this, and then our dear friend, one day we're talking and with Roberta Potts, who's been my editor for now the second book, and she said, if you ever do another book, I'm here to help you with that. And I'm like, how does she know I've been thinking about another book? So I said, do you mean that? And she said, sure. So we started doing that. But this book in particular, I wanted to include other people in this book other than just me. So the first portion of this, my writings, my stories, that type of thing. But the back half, I wanted a combination of people who were seasoned ministers and then others just starting. Because I wanted to say, here's an opportunity for people who have fought the battle, learned from it, passed information on to other people, have lived to tell about it, as well as people who are just starting in ministry who may not ever have another opportunity to be published. So that's the combination of authors who are in the back section of this book.
The title of the book, again, is Oxygen for the Soul, and that is based on a quote by George Madison Adams. And I had to ask Alexa who I didn't know if he was living, George Madison Adams. He is not living, by the way. He was a U.S. representative from Kentucky who served from 1867 to 1875. And this appealed to you so much that you have a title very similar.
Exactly.
He said, encouragement is oxygen to the soul. And that really resonated with you.
Sure it did.
And I have to agree. I mean, everybody needs to be encouraged, and everybody needs to be encouraging others.
Sure. I saw on television recently someone who knew Truett Cathy of Chick-fil-A. And this Mr. Cathy asked this person, do you know who needs encouragement? Do you know what signs to look for when someone needs encouragement? And this person said, no, sir, I have no idea what that means. If they're breathing.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, David, when someone gives us a compliment, we stand a little taller, we breathe a little deeper, we have a sense of further well-being, and it's that extra encouragement, that extra push that sends us from where we are now to where we need to be down in the road in the future.
And this goes beyond just somebody's personality, which is a giver type personality.
Sure.
Everybody, no matter what your personality, or no matter what your gender, or no matter how busy you are called to be an encourager. Would you not agree?
Right. Oh, that is so true. It takes just seconds. We can all recount some time in our past where someone was rude to us or unthoughtful. Mm-hmm. But we relish the stories of when people actually encouraged. Can you believe he stopped and said this to me, or he bought my meal, or he gave me a book, or he did this, that, or the other? Those types of stories live on past the giver. And sometimes we tell those stories at a funeral. We'll tell stories about how this person did this in secret or that type of thing to bless people. But there is no one who does not need encouragement.
I noticed that you brought in a copy of your book for all of the staff here. And I also noticed you had a box in your hand. And just because I've known you for a while, I have a feeling there is sugar in that box somewhere.
There are a round disc of sugar. I am a cookie person, and I believe that cookies are God's health food, and so I like to share that with other people.
All right, Thomas Harrison is our guest for the hour. Oxygen for the Soul is what we're talking about today, and when we come back, we're going to discuss some of the many contributors whose inspirational articles appear in this book, including, you just mentioned her, Roberta Roberts Potts, Richard Exley, a man I know very well, David Ingalls, a man whom I admired so greatly, Stan Toller, and of course you, Thomas Harrison. I'm David Warren, and we'll both be back after this. I'm David Warren, here with some exciting news for Oasis listeners. We have a new mobile device app. It's free, easy to download, and lets you enjoy our refreshing music and talk everywhere you go. If you have an Android cell phone, go to the Google Play Store. And if you have an iPhone or iPad, visit the Apple Store and search for Oasis Radio Network. Be an Oasis ambassador and share this news with family and friends around the world.
I came to this place from a dry, thirsty land. I found an oasis of love. Oasis Network.
Thomas Harrison is our guest for the hour. Again, his book is called Oxygen for the Soul, available on Amazon.com, also through that website I mentioned earlier, MediaEmbassy.com. I'm David Warren, your host today, and in the first segment we talked about the contributing authors who wrote inspirational articles for this new book, Thomas. But when you approached these different people, how did you present the idea? I'm writing this new book, and I want you to write an article on encouragement?
Encouragement. I said, I don't want to give you the title. I want you to find something that is so meaningful to you that hundreds and thousands of other people would find inspirational. And 16 people said yes. 15 people, one family I approached. I said, could you allow me the privilege of using Dr. Stan Toller's message in my book? And his son said, yes, our family wants you to use a story in your book. Dad would want to be in your book.
Well, we will have you read that in just a moment, but first I want to mention that the foreword of Oxygen for the Soul was written by your friend Richard Exley. Right. And that is a name from my past. I remember how popular he was during the time that I attended Oral Roberts University. But apparently you guys have been friends a very long time.
We have. We've worked on several projects together.
All right. So I picked out a few choice sentences from the foreword that I thought were beautifully written, and here is what Richard Exley wrote. He says, Thomas, you not only have eyes to see misery and want, but also eyes to see beauty in the most unlikely places. Your personal stories, insightful observations, and inspiring vignettes give us eyes to see what you see and faith to believe. As inspiring as Thomas's vision is, and as encouraging and uplifting as his writing is, it is only a part of his gift, a small part. His greatest gift is his heart, and I agree with Richard Exley on that. And then Richard says, let me explain. My wife and I were married for 56 years, and when she went to be with Jesus, I grieved unspeakably. Ordinary tasks seemed overwhelming. I never told anyone, but Thomas seemed to sense my struggle. Instead of just praying for me, which he did, or simply sending a card or a note, he telephoned me. Over my protests, he insisted on driving nearly 3 hours to spend a day and a half helping with things that needed doing. Several tasks were labor-intensive, but he never complained. How was it Augustine put it? Love has hands to help others. Then he finishes, I guess what I'm trying to say is that Thomas lives what he writes. He's the real deal, and so is oxygen for the soul. All right. Well, you have mentioned Stan Toller's family. Stan wrote an article that is included in this new book in 2012, and then he passed in 2017.
Right.
And he was one of my favorite guests. And he was the kind of guy that when he left, I thought I was the best interviewer on the planet. And at that time, I don't know that I really was. I'm still working on that, Thomas, but he just made you feel so good about yourself.
He loved people. We traveled together for quite some time. I would work his book tables and various other things, and there would be occasions when he would say, now, if you see someone circling the book table more than once, give them a book. And he said, and make sure they come and have me sign it. He said, they probably don't have enough money for the book, or they're debating lunch or a book. He said, you see that, you give them a book. And he gave away more books than he ever sold.
And I remember seeing his books in airports all across this country.
Oh, they're everywhere. They're everywhere.
Dr. Stan Toller. And you know what's interesting, though? I didn't attend his funeral. I'm sure you probably did.
Yes, I did.
I doubt that what people mainly talked about was all his great writings. I bet they talked about how he made them feel.
Oh, sure. The times when he would be somewhere and he would come in with armloads of pizza. He would buy 10 or 12 pizzas at a time and go to a youth meeting, or he would take something to somewhere. And John Maxwell preached his funeral. He was the first paid associate for John Maxwell back in the day when John pastored a church. And then when John went out on his own, Stan went with him. And so he was a fascinating man. He always encouraged me to be better than who I was. And when I was with him, I always felt better than who I thought I was.
Mm-hmm. I've heard it said, always leave somebody better off after having been in your presence, or something similar to that.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you read the article that was written in 2012, and again, his family graciously gave you permission to include this in your new book of encouragement.
When Nothing's Happening, Something's Happening by Stan Toller. University of Illinois football coach Bob Zuppke was famous for his motivational halftime speeches. He really knew how to fire up his teams. One Sunday afternoon, Zuppke's team was losing a lethargic. Coach Zuppke gave a win one for the Gipper kind of speech. As the troops responded excitedly, dramatically, the coach pointed to the door at the end of the locker room and said, "Now go out there and win this game." Emotionally charged, the players jumped up and ran to the door. The first player blasted through the doors of several others that followed, but there was one problem. It was the wrong door. One by one, they all fell into the swimming pool. Life is a lot like that. We find a door and charge through it only to discover it's the wrong door. At other times, we think nothing's happening in our lives, but that's when we should really pay attention to what God is doing. The phrase, when nothing's happening, something's happening, took on a great significance to me on almost a daily basis in my home mission church. I have often confided to friends that I enjoyed this faith-building experience more than any other phase of ministry. It constantly required complete and utter dependence on God in the matter of church finances. In other words, we were always broke. On one occasion, I took a step of faith and purchased on credit 22 used church pews at a cost of $2,000. That was a wonderful price, considering new pews would have cost us approximately $8,000. There was only one problem. I had no idea on earth how we were going to pay for the pews. After all, our church offerings averaged only $120 per week. What I didn't know was that God was at work behind the scenes. I spent a very restless night walking the halls, crying, praying, and wondering why I had just spent $2,000 for those pews. The very next morning, I stopped for my usual cup of coffee at Shoney's and then drove to the post office. There was only one envelope in the mailbox, and it had a window. Usually that meant it was a bill. I got to the car, tossed the letter aside, and drove to my office. I hate to open bills. Later in the morning, I decided to open the letter, and I was immediately stunned. It was a letter from the Oldham Little Church Foundation. 2 years prior to this faith venture, I had written the Oldham Little Church Foundation requesting financial help with the construction of our church sanctuary. They responded quickly to my letter, turning us down. I accepted this disappointment and forgot about the whole situation. Now I was holding a letter from them in my hands. Dear Pastor Toller, greetings. I am writing to inform you of the decision of the Oldham Little Church Foundation Board to assist you in your building program. While the enclosed check is small, we trust that it will help you purchase some pulpit furniture. Enclosed is a check for $2,000. As I have reflected on this incident, I am reminded that God's timing is always perfect. He knows what we need when we need it. Personally, I have on occasion wished that He would work with my time schedule. But this I know, God is never late, and He never fails. Never.
Thomas, one of the things that I bring up from time to time on this program, David Warren here, hosting today with Thomas Harrison, and that was, by the way, from the book Oxygen for the Soul, a collection of inspirational articles, mainly written by today's guest, but also contributors like Dr. Stan Toller. But one of the things that he inspired me, I'm going to say, at least 25 years ago, maybe, it's been quite some time, how he did not put his head on the pillow until he had reached out to so many people. I want to say 5 because that's what I decided to do. That he would make a phone call and now send a text, maybe be in the line to get a burger and make a comment about the person's hair or their whatever. It's just something of encouragement.
He was that way all the time. We'd be in the line at the airport waiting to board a plane, and he'd be on the phone. Now, Maggie, I know you're at the hospital. This is Pastor Toller calling, and let me pray for you right now. And then the line waiting for whatever, he would be praying for the person. He said, now, you have the church's number. They have my number. We will be in touch. We're trusting God to heal you and take care of you and the physicians and all that. 90 seconds of pastoral care is what he called that. He said, I always have time for 90 seconds of pastoral care.
But what I took from him and have incorporated daily, Thomas, is I reach out to 5 people, and I, by the way, have a journal, and that's one of the things I journal, and I have little hash marks, and that because I need that kind of, self-accountability.
Yes.
To be proactive during the day, because we can get so into our schedules that we forget to stop and take, 90 seconds of pastoral care time?
Exactly.
And we can all do 90 seconds of pastoral care time. And that way, we're a leader. So
Exactly.
we're a little mini pastor in a way.
Exactly.
But anyhow, I guess what I'm encouraging people, come up with something on your own. I've also heard having 5 pennies in the left pocket, and you move a penny over to the. You're nodding
That's a
yes
great idea.
on radio.
Yeah.
You move a penny over to the right side pocket.
When you've accomplished
And
that.
so let's say it's 7:30 at night, and you're wanting to wind down, and you got one more penny to go. Well, then send that last text or whatever.
How many times, David, have we been at our lowest point and all of a sudden we get a text from someone and that lifts our spirits? Or turn that around, we've sent a text, I've just thought of David, and I'll send David a text and I get a text back, not you, David, but another David. And David would go, "You don't know what your text meant to me. Just your checking in, thank you." It's that simple.
Well, the next contributor that I want to mention is one of our very own here at Oasis. We claim her, Roberta Roberts Potts. Behind your back, Thomas, I taped a clip with Roberta, your friend and editor, I guess co-editor of this book. We did this last week, and here's how that went. Joining us by phone is my longtime friend and former co-host, Roberta Potts. Roberta,
Da-da-da.
welcome back to the Road Show. Where are you today?
I'm in Scottsdale, Arizona, where we live, David Warren.
What do you do in Scottsdale, Arizona?
Well, I've had lots of fun things. I've been editing books for folks, and I've been helping our pastor illustrate sermons, and just, all kinds of fun things. I love the weather out here, but I sure miss you all. I just love the Oasis Network. Of course, you already know that.
Yes, we all know that. We all love you, and we still have a chair here for you if you will just come
All
visit
right.
us, and we'll do a full hour together when you do so. And then I'll try to talk you into moving here permanently. But today we are talking about Thomas Harrison's new book, Oxygen for the Soul, which includes not one, but two articles written by you. And I have picked my favorite of the two. They're both very good. But it is a funny word here, "spose." I'm supposed to be healed tonight. And this is an article that you wrote about your father, Oral Roberts. Tell us about this, or why don't you just read it to us?
Okay, I will do that. It starts out with this beautiful verse from Luke 7:50, "Your faith has saved you." After he had prayed for so many people, my dad would be gut-wrenchingly tired. I don't know just how long some of those healing lines lasted. I don't know how many hurting, suffering people lined up in front of him, hoping so much for a miracle. But what I do know is that there came a time when Oral Roberts would be bone tired, and there was just nothing else for him to do but to end the meeting for the night. Picture him standing there all that time, an hour, 2 hours, reaching out his right arm to pray, believing in faith with all his might for every single person who came before him, sometimes children, sometimes adults, sometimes people who could walk, sometimes individuals on crutches or maybe in wheelchairs. One particular evening, after he'd prayed for sick folks for many long hours, there were many more people lined up wanting to be prayed for so very much. But he had no choice. There was nothing for it but to close the meeting for the night. The healing evangelist had proven once again that he was all too human, and he had reached the end of what his little daughter saw, or rather imagined, as superhuman strength. But on the way out to the car waiting to take him to his motel room, Dad met a little boy, an incredibly persistent little boy, perhaps 7 or 8 years old. From what Dad could later discover, the boy's mother had brought him to the crusade that night, and they had been waiting in the healing line. But when Dad had been forced to stop, they had been left standing. Undaunted, the little boy was far too determined to give up. When he saw that the evangelist was no longer praying for the sick, he disappeared, undoubtedly causing no small concern for his poor mother. All Dad knew was that the little boy appeared before him saying, "Mister, I'm supposed to be healed tonight." Of course, Dad began explaining, probably very kindly the first time, "Son, I preached a sermon. I had an altar call for the salvation of lost souls. I've been praying for the sick all evening. And the truth is, I'm just too tired to do any more. I'm really sorry, but you and your mom will just have to come back tomorrow night." But the little boy refused to leave. "Sir, I don't know anything about all that. All I know is that I'm supposed to be healed tonight." Now, since he was my daddy, as especially now that he's in heaven, I can tell you that Oral Roberts had a little bit of a temper, especially when he was tired. And I wouldn't have had the nerve to cross him in that moment. No, not me. Knowing him as I did, I suspect Dad's reply was a little less than kind. But nothing he could say or do would change the mind of that little boy. He simply repeated, "I'm supposed to be healed tonight." Finally, in desperation, Oral Roberts placed his hands on the boy in a healing prayer, perhaps not including all that much faith. But, yes, the little boy was correct. He was supposed to be healed that night, and he was healed that night. It obviously had little to do with an exhausted evangelist. And the power that brought the healing did not reside in the boy either. The power came when a desperate faith met the same Jesus who healed the paralytic let down from a roof. Yes, he was supposed to be healed. And it's that kind of faith, my dear sister, my dear brother, that will heal you. Believe in faith today, for that same Jesus who healed the little boy has not changed, nor will he ever change. Believe. Believe in his ever-present healing power. It's for you. It's for you today. I say to you right now in the name of Jesus, you're supposed to be healed. And David Warren, I end up the story with this verse from Matthew 9:8. When the crowd saw this, they were filled with awe, and they praised God, who had given such authority to men. Hallelujah.
What a great story, true story. A story of encouragement, which is contained in Thomas Harrison's new book, Oxygen for the Soul. How did the two of you meet, Roberta?
Well, I believe we met at a Crisis Pregnancy Resource Center's banquet. Now it's a medical place, but I believe that's where we met. He and his wife, Kathy, they are just dear people. We've known them for, I don't know, maybe 30 years, a long, long time. And I was so blessed when he asked me to help him edit and proofread this book.
Well, the new book is about the importance of encouragement, both giving it and receiving encouragement. How would you say Thomas has been an encouragement in your life, Roberta?
Oh, my goodness. I don't know how it happened exactly, but just over the years, we've just kind of encouraged each other. And he just never seems to have a down day. You know, he'll mention the problem, and then he'll go, but you know what Jesus said. You know, he just is such an encouragement in my life, in Ron's life. That's my husband. So many lives, and I'm so thrilled about this book. I believe it's going to really make a difference in people's lives, David Warren.
Speaking of books, you wrote a biography. Well, actually, it's an autobiography called My Dad, Oral Roberts. So it's kind of autobiographical about yourself and biographical about your dad. And that book is available on your website, robertapotts.com, as well as beautiful organ music that we play regularly here on Oasis Radio Network. What do you think about that?
That's pretty awesome. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. All right. Well, we're getting ready to wrap our time together. Thanks so much for spending a few minutes with us. As we do get ready to say goodbye, why don't you speak a few words of encouragement directly to Thomas, who is listening during this program?
Thomas, and really I should call you Dr. Harrison now because you have your PhD. I just want to encourage you today. I'm so thankful for you, for your ministry and the ministry of your wife, Kathy. Thank you so much for all you have done and are doing for the kingdom of God.
Amen. Thank you, Roberta. And we're back. And I trust that you, Thomas, feel adequately encouraged by
a surprise
by our dear friend. Are you really surprised?
Yes. I had no idea. Roberta didn't say a word.
Well, before we take another break, I would like for you to read an article that you wrote. It's on page 38, and this is my favorite article in the book. Wow. It's called Thankful for the Knots. And this is one of those books because you can jump around in it. And so, grabbing titles or titles with that grab you really work, because I thought, what does he mean thankful for the knots? And that's N-O-T-S. And then I read it, and it touched me. And before we go to break, would you read this article that you wrote, Thankful for the Knots?
With contemporary society and a hectic pace to create and perpetuate materialism, this value often transfers to the spiritual side of life. For example, when we are asked to pause and think about the things for which we are thankful, we recite a litany of items that resemble an inventory rather than actual blessings. I am the first to admit my guilt to the former charge. On numerous occasions, I have recited countless things in an effort to sound spiritual. Would you admit with me that our listing of things often turns to one-upmanship? We equate God's blessings in our lives with the things we can touch, hold, mortgage, invest, borrow, store, convert, guard, or hoard. For once, I am thankful for the knots in my life. That's right. I am thankful for all the things that I do not have. These thoughts came to me one day as I prayed while driving to work. I am thankful for the things I did not say, for the times when God helped me to keep my tongue in check. Keeping my mouth shut has saved me from a flattened wallet, nose, or reputation. I practice the art and gift of patience. I am thankful for the things I did not buy. All I need in my life are more things. After a while, no matter how much I think I need them, these things end up in my garage or my garage sale. I am thankful for all the job offers that I did not accept. Some companies that offered me a job are no longer in business or on a different life course than I am pursuing. I am thankful for some of my thoughts did not become reality. Imagination is a blessing and a curse. We are to take control over the thoughts, especially those which challenge God's plan. 2 Corinthians 10:5. Do you really want to see all of what your mind imagines? I am thankful I did not make decisions during emotional times. Fortunately, God allowed my blood pressure to settle down so that I could make rational decisions after the heat of the moment passed. Never make decisions when you are hurting, afraid, lonely, or tired. I am thankful for all the ailments and diseases I did not contract. I am healthy, and I know people who lack good health. I am thankful for all the people I did not refuse to help. Some needed help. For others, it was not as obvious. When I helped, I was the one who received the greater blessing. I am thankful for all the times I did not hesitate to speak a kind word or do a kind deed. My favorite kindness approach is to do something secretly. Kind words cost nothing, but yield significant dividends.
I want to mention that that message has been published in the Oklahoman. It's a newspaper here in the state of Oklahoma, and many other newspapers. So something about this resonated with a whole lot of other journalists besides yours truly, David Warren, Thomas.
Amen to that.
All right. Tell us where we can get the book, Oxygen for the Soul.
Oxygen for the Soul is available in 3 formats, and both Kindle, softcover, and hardcover from Amazon.com. You can just type in Oxygen for the Soul plus Harrison, and you will find 3 formats available for you, delivered right to your door or to the door of someone that you love.
I hear that old school DJ in your voice, and I love it. I love it, Thomas. Thomas Harrison is our special guest today, and this book is dedicated to the spiritual sons and daughters, past, present, and future, that he and his wife, Kathy, have had. When we come back, I want to ask Thomas to share how the rest of us can spiritually parent or mentor a younger person, and we'll discuss that after this break.
I'm Karen Jensen Salisbury, one of the hosts you hear on the Oasis Network Roadshow. For 35 years, this 1 hour of the day has inspired and motivated you, our listeners, with thousands of stories of people whose lives demonstrate the truth that with God, all things are possible. It's an hour that you should make a part of your day, Monday through Friday, starting at 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Central. The Roadshow, an Oasis Network presentation.
On today's program, Thomas Harrison is with us, giving us Oxygen for the Soul. That is the name of his new book. The subtitle is Life is Too Short to Be Discouraged. I am David Warren, and I have to say, I was super surprised, Thomas, when this book arrived. And right above the title, you have this quote that says, I think of Oxygen for the Soul as oxygen therapy for those wanting to improve their overall health and quality of life. And there's my name, Oasis Radio Network. I was really surprised, and I appreciate you including me on the cover of this book.
Well, you're welcome. I'm so glad that you were pleased with that. I asked you for an endorsement, and when your endorsement came, your total endorsement was much longer than this. And I read this phrase, and I said, that is the catcher for the front.
I mentioned that my favorite article is called Thankful for the Knots,
Yes.
and that's the one you just read before the break, and it caught my eye, the title of the article. So I have the contents open, and I have a few of these titles of the articles that I've highlighted, and I'm just going to have you comment
Okay.
on what does that mean, but
Okay, sure.
I love these titles. Caring, C-A-R-I-N-G, caring is the new superpower.
David, when you employ caring, it is a superpower. It empowers you to change other people's lives. And if you think, well, I don't have a talent, I can't sing, I can't play the piano, I'm not a gifted preacher, I'm not a writer, I'm not this or that, but if you can care and show people that you care, you can help them fly.
I love that. Helpers High, H-E-L-P-E-R-S, Helpers High.
Talk about a natural high. When you help someone over a situation, whether it's an illness, whether it is a disease, whether it is a discouragement or whatever, when you help them, there is something that God gives back to you that cannot be explained in any other way. It is a high. It is God lifts your spirit in the process.
You know, one of the persons that I think of that's a huge helper is the guy who's at the controls to my left and to your right, Tim Maroney. He loves to help people.
Yes.
Like, for example, I need to move some big rugs. They're heavy. And, who wants to help in that project? And he's like, I'll do it. And so I just want to tip my hat to Tim Maroney, our sound man.
And I have to say, Tim's in the book. He took a photograph of us, and there's a photo credit with your name on
Hey,
it.
Tim. You made the book. He's smiling right now. But Tim definitely has helpers high,
Yes.
I would say. Okay. 5 words stopped my plan. That grabbed my attention. I had to actually go find out what those 5 words were.
Oh,
I couldn't
know,
wait.
I know.
What
That
are the 5 words that stopped your plan, and what was the plan that needed to be stopped?
There was a situation that happened in a church service that I heard, and the pastor was saying something that was not totally correct.
According to you.
According to me, who was the expert, of course, in that situation. And so I had devised a plan to get a message to the pastor about how that this thing needed to be addressed. And so I'm unveiling this plan to my wife that involves another person to get a message to the pastor. So I didn't go straight to the pastor, right? I was having another person go to the pastor. And I had worked this plan in my mind, and I mentioned this to Kathy, who knew both the minister and her husband. And she said, "Did he ask your opinion?" So I sheepishly said, "No."
And you kept the message to yourself.
I did.
You married a smart woman.
She is smart.
What part did she play in encouraging you in this book?
You know, every once
Kathy.
in a while, she would say, you know, you need to write about that. And I would say, yes. And then there was one particular article that I went into great detail, and she said, I think you overshared this. You may want to pull some detail out of this story. And so she was always encouraging. And when I would have a new author to come, and she said, oh, he'd be great for your book. He'd be great for your book. So she was just always there in the background. You know, she didn't want to proofread it. She didn't want to read any of it in advance. A couple of stories I asked if she could read in advance because she is the hero in the story. So that's the 5 words. I'm a little embarrassed about that particular story, but I felt it was important to say. You know, we don't all bat 1,000.
But you know what? You were smart enough to listen to your wife.
Amen. Amen. True.
You would have had some egg on your face.
Yes.
Had that.
Or a flattened nose or something.
Something unpleasant. All right. Here is an article that's called My Encounter with a Celebrity Who Treated Me Like a Prince. Who was this celebrity?
Well, you know, I met several celebrities that particular night. One of them is Rosie Greer, who's a fantastic man who had a wonderful place in history. If you don't know that person, you need to Google them and find out about them. But that was the man I'm referring to here is Dr. Walter Hungren, who was pastor of First Baptist Church in Tulsa, and he treated me as if I were the celebrity that night.
Before we took our last break, I mentioned that I would ask about your spiritual sons and daughters. Now, I don't believe that, Kathy, and you have natural children. Okay, but you have a lot of spiritual children.
They're everywhere, and we're most thankful for them.
So how do you define a spiritual son or daughter?
That is someone who has allowed me to be a part of their life and who has allowed me to speak into their life or to help them with a ministry of some sort.
All right. So why don't you encourage the rest of us that are older than 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, and maybe I know I currently don't have a spiritual son or a spiritual daughter. I know that I know a whole lot more naturally and spiritually than I knew 20, 30 years ago.
Sure. You know, David, we all need people to speak into our lives. We all need people to encourage us, correct us, strengthen us, and and also provide a way for us sometimes. Ministry is often opportunity more than it is position, and helping someone be observant to opportunities that are around them, that is a part of the spiritual gifting. So when I started this book, I began thinking of my spiritual sons and daughters and various places of ministry that they are. And I thought, the first book I dedicated to my family and friends, but this book I wanted to dedicate to my spiritual sons and daughters all over the earth, all over everywhere. They're doing greater works than I can do. They're doing more than I can do. They're ministering in ways that I haven't even comprehended to do. And yet, sometimes it's just a text. Sometimes it's accompanying on a road trip. Sometimes it's being with them in the service and critiquing their service, helping them in their first pastorates and that type of thing. It's just helping them be that undergirdment and support that we all need.
Okay, I love that. So I have a mission now. I've got some homework. I've got to find a spiritual son or daughter.
Put those 5 quarters in your pocket.
Move it from the left side to the right
There you
side.
go.
It might take me more than a day to find people.
That's why they're quarters and not pennies.
This new book, Oxygen for the Soul, by Thomas Harrison, is available on Amazon.com. And how many formats is it in? You said 3?
It's in 3 formats. It's Kindle, softcover, and hardcover.
Wow. All right. Also, if they order through your website, MediaEmbassy.com, you will not only sign it, but write some words of encouragement.
Yes, and if you need bulk purchases, which we've had several of those, and if you need them to be inscribed with your name or the name of a loved one or your pastor or someone, you just contact me, Thomas, at MediaEmbassy.com.
And again, the website address, MediaEmbassy.com. There are 2 S's in embassy, by the way.
Yes, preferably.
All right, we're going to take one more break, and then when we come back, we will have some final words of encouragement from our very special guest, Thomas Harrison. Back after this. I'm David Warren, Program Director at Oasis Radio Network and one of the hosts of this podcast. All of our hosts enjoy hearing from you, our listening family, so drop us a note. Our email address is roadshow@oasisnetwork.org. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast and you'll receive new episodes on your mobile devices. And now, back to the show. It has been a true pleasure to have Thomas Harrison back on the airwaves of the Oasis Radio Network. I'm David Warren. I also want to say how great it was to hear from my longtime co-host and friend, Roberta Potts. Heard from her earlier. And if you didn't hear that, this program is archived. So you can check that out on our website, oasisnetwork.org. Go to the Roadshow section because we have shared a lot of wonderful information. We being mostly our guest, Thomas Harrison, who has written the book called Oxygen for the Soul. And as we started this program, I mentioned that Thomas was inspired to call his book this title based on a quote by a man named George Madison Adams, who said, "Encouragement is oxygen to the soul." So on that note, Thomas, we have time for one more article, and this is called Encouragement is Oxygen to the Body and Spirit, an article that you wrote, and we are eager to hear it.
When I attended Oral Roberts University, one of the non-academic requirements for graduation was to pass a series of physical fitness tests. While running in preparation for a field test, we were required to run an indoor test within a certain time. I was never athletic, but God had clearly spoken to me that I was to complete my bachelor's degree at ORU. The coach divided the class into two teams. One kept time while the other ran. As an experiment, the coach told us not to say anything to the runner on the first round. Beginning with the second round, shout encouragement to the runner each successive round. Now, one would think the more laps you ran, the more tired you would become, but actually, the successive laps were better time-wise than the first. Years later, I can see and hear my running partner Tim encouraging me to keep running. I remember the feeling of accomplishment as I reviewed my results. In the marathon we call life, let us encourage each other. It truly does make quite a difference. Therefore, encourage one another and build up each other. 1 Thessalonians 5, verse 11, NIV. My mission in life is to encourage others, including you.
I love that. I'm over here flipping pages. I thought we could end with this quote. In fact, I'll just save it for a moment. I have mentioned that this book, Oxygen for the Soul, is available on Amazon.com. Thomas says it's out in 3 formats: Kindle, softback, hardback. And he will sign the book if you order through his website, MediaEmbassy.com. And he also has the book called Move Up, Don't Give Up. And that's definitely available on your website. I'm sure that's on Amazon.
Yes,
probably.
Both are available on Amazon.
Okay.
In all 3 formats.
So, the book is out. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And now you're encouraging people everywhere you go.
I'm encouraging people, and this book, the thing about a book, David Warren, is that God can take a book and take it places, send it places where you can never go. So this book right now is on its way to a chaplain on a naval destroyer in Japan. This book right now is in the mail, in the process of going to a pastor in Honolulu at a church. This book has been ordered by so many people and distributed to their friends and family. And there's so many wonderful stories that God has given me to share in this beautiful book, Oxygen for the Soul.
By Thomas Harrison. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thomas. There is an article in the book. It's called Dr. Harrison's Words of Wisdom. See, even you call yourself a doctor. So I've done it.
On that one page.
Roberta's done it. Well, you know what? You spent the time. You earned the degree. And so he's nodding his head. Okay, you're right.
You're right.
You deserve a pat on the back. I want
Okay.
to encourage you
Thank
to
you, David.
embrace the letters PhD
Yes.
because you deserve it, my friend, Dr. Harrison.
Thank you.
But in your words of wisdom, I found this one, and we'll end with this today. You said this, Thomas: if we spend our lives encouraging people, we will never want for ministry. We will be ministry. Beautiful words. Thank you for your time again today.
Thank you, David Warren.
Well, for Thomas Harrison, I'm David Warren, and it's been another encouraging Roadshow. You've been listening to The Roadshow. If you'd like to write to us, here's our address: The Roadshow, P.O. Box 1924, Tulsa, Oklahoma 74101. Our email address is roadshow@oasisnetwork.org. The views of today's guest aren't necessarily those of this station, but we do appreciate and thank our guest for spending this time with us. The Roadshow, an Oasis Network presentation.